There are a number of really practical things that you can do in order to improve your understanding and interpretation of another message. First of all, you can resist tuning the other person out by trying to motivate yourself to listen to them. You can really try to get rid of as many distractions as possible so that you're not focused on those other things that are distracting you in the environment. Like, for example, if I'm in an important meeting, I make sure my cell phone's turned off. That way it doesn't ring and really distract me. Also, if I have an important encounter with another individual, maybe like a student who needs to meet with me about a problem, I'll make sure I schedule an appointment with them. That way I know in advance so I can be prepared to listen to them. I can make sure I've ended any tasks that I'm doing by that point in time so I don't have it sort of hanging over me. I don't have anything else scheduled at the same time that I have to worry about. So those sorts of things help me to be able to resist tuning the other person out. Secondly, you can identify the speaker's purpose and key points. That way you really know what's most important to focus on and retain and recall within that situation. And if you can understand those key points and the purpose that the speaker has, then you're usually better able to interpret and understand all the surrounding messages that support those key points. Observing the nonverbal cues of the other person is not a surefire way to be able to interpret them accurately. While nonverbal carries a lot of meaning, it also can be misunderstood quite frequently. However, in conjunction with the verbal message, it can give us more depth and understanding to that verbal message, and it can help you to pick up on things like when there is contradiction between the verbal and nonverbal message. And you might want to address that. You might say, hey, in your tone of voice, I know you said that you weren't angry and that you didn't care, but it sounded like maybe there was more to it than that. Are you sure that you're not a little bit upset by this? If you notice that sort of contradiction, then you can follow up on it, and then maybe you can get the other person to open up to you and to clarify that for you. Also, you need to avoid interrupting the other person if you're going to be able to understand them. If you're constantly cutting them off, then you're not going to be able to get the full message in. So really try to observe those conversational rules that we talked about last time, especially related to interrupting, and adhere to the manner maxim, okay? Also, be aware that the speech-thought differential gives you a lot of free time as a listener. People speak at a slower rate than we listen at, and so in making up that time difference, we tend to fill our mind then with our to-do list, something that happened early in our day that maybe upset us, or we think about what we want to be doing later on rather than focusing on the situation at hand. What you can do in your extra time is you can repeat key ideas, you can rephrase things in your head, and that can help you. Also, you can use paraphrasing and perception checks to make sure that you understand the other person. Paraphrasing is whenever you put their ideas in your own words to see if you really understand where they're coming from, what they're thinking, what they're saying. Also, perception checks allow you to repeat back those key ideas and to ask them whether or not you're accurate in the way that you approximated that meaning. And perception checks, when we talked about nonverbal communication, can be used in nonverbal, but they can also be used for verbal as well, not just nonverbal. You can ask questions. You can engage in what we call mirroring, where you take something that they said and you rephrase it as a question. You can ask clarifying questions. I really caution you against asking a lot of closed-ended questions where they just say yes or no, because that doesn't get them to elaborate. You want more open-ended questions. So the how did that happen? That would allow for elaboration. Also, note the kind of information that you need from them so that you can ask questions that relate to that information. You can also deliver questions sincerely so that they know that you really are just asking out of concern because you care or because you think that's important to you. And you don't want to do it confrontationally where you make the other person feel like they're on the spot. And you put the burden of ignorance on your shoulders rather than them, so that way they don't feel like you are confronting them, that you are placing undue responsibility on them, or making them think more about it than they feel comfortable with at that given moment. So these are some key ways that you can improve your own understanding and interpreting during communication encounters.